Now let's have some fun and try and create our own Voronoi diagram. This is not going to happen in the IB, that we're going to have to construct an entire Voronoi diagram, but we will be asked to insert a site. But let's try it out because it's a lot of fun. We're going to create a Voronoi diagram with 3 sites, and I'm going to start by putting them on my map. So -5 and 2 is my site A. I'm going to have 3 and -4, which is going to be my site B. And C is -3 and -2. So this is going to be C. In order to create my Voronoi diagram, I need to now create my cells. So we're going to go ahead and create our cells. First, I'm going to focus on cell C because C is in the middle of A and B. So I'm going to need to find the perpendicular bisector between A and C and between C and B. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to find this perpendicular bisector by looking at my graph, but also using all my knowledge that I have from our last course. If I'm talking about the perpendicular bisector between A and C, then first let's find our midpoint. So the midpoint between A and C, we can either use the formula where we're adding our x coordinates together, dividing it by 2, and we're doing the same thing to our y coordinates. So we're going to get that the midpoint is -4 and 0. So my midpoint, -4 and 0, I'm going to put that right here. And then I'm going to have a line which is perpendicular to this. So let's find out what the slope of the line AC is. The slope of the line AC, what I can do is I can use my formula again, and I'm subtracting my y coordinates together. So -2 minus 2, and then we have -3 minus -5. And we're going to get -4 over, we're having -3 plus 5 over 2. So that's going to be -2. So that's the slope connecting AC together, this one here. But I'm interested in the slope, which is going to be my perpendicular bisector. So I need a slope perpendicular to that. So the slope of the perpendicular bisector, PB, is going to be positive 1 over 2, the negative reciprocal. Okay, so using my slope, what I can do, since I'm simply needing to graph it, I don't need to find the full equation. I have a slope of 1 over 2. That means rise 1, run 2. So from my midpoint, which is a point on my perpendicular bisector, I'm going to run up, and I'm going to rise up 1, and I'm going to run 2. So I'm going to have this line that's going to be created. This is going to be the perpendicular bisector of A and C. Now I'm going to do the same thing for B. So let me use a different color. Let's find the perpendicular bisector between C and B. First, let's find its midpoint. So the midpoint, we're going to use the midpoint formula. I'm adding the x coordinates of B and C. And then I'm going to do the same thing to their y coordinates. And I get that their midpoint is going to happen at 0 and -3. So 0 and -3, we have this here. This is going to be their midpoint. Now let's find what the slope of CB is. The slope of CB will be -2 minus -4 divided by -3 minus 3. So we're going to have -2 plus 4 is +2, and then the denominator -6. So you can keep it like this, or this simplifies to -1 over 3. Therefore, the slope of the perpendicular bisector is going to be +3. So +3 is the same thing as 3 over 1. So I'm going to rise 3 and run 1. So from my midpoint, I'm going to rise 3 and run 1. So my next point is going to be here. Connecting these two together, I'm going to have a line. I'm trying my best here a line that looks something like this, and I may send it on the other side as the perpendicular bisector for C and B. Now, we're almost there finishing our Voronoi diagram. What we did is we created the cell of C. C is created by having its perpendicular bisectors with the other points. So this part here, these two parts of the edge will create cell C. Now, we have an intersection between our two edges. This means at this point, which is our vertex, cell C is done. We're all done with C. So the only two cells we need to create now are A and B. So we can't continue these two perpendicular bisectors because they involve C. We're done with C. So now I need to have the perpendicular bisector continue here, which is going to be the perpendicular bisector between A and B. So now I need to find the perpendicular bisector between A and B. I'm going to try and make myself a little bit more room here. So we're trying to find the perpendicular bisector between A and B. Let's first find their midpoint. So their midpoint, I'm going to be adding their x coordinates together, dividing it by 2, and adding their y coordinates together, dividing it by 2. So we're going to get that their midpoint is going to be -1 and -1. So -1 and -1, we're somewhere here. And now we're going to find the slope between A and B. The slope between A and B is -4 minus 2 divided by 3 minus -5. So we're going to have on the top -6. On the bottom, we're going to have +3 plus 5, so 8. If we simplify this, it's going to be -3 divided by 4. So that means that the slope of my perpendicular bisector is going to be +4/3. So I'm going to be rising 4 and running 3. Let's see where that is. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Perfect. So the perpendicular bisector is going to be this line. There we go. Connecting our points. Now, does it make sense that it passes through the vertex? Yes. By definition, the vertex is the intersection point of all three of the perpendicular bisectors when we have only 3 sides, right? Okay, so now in order to create our proper Voronoi diagram, we're going to have to use only the edges that we need. So I'm going to have the perpendicular bisector AC is going to be used, but only until we reach the vertex. The perpendicular bisector CB will be used, but only until I reach the vertex. And then after the vertex, I'm going to be using the perpendicular bisector of A and B. So I can erase all the unnecessary lines, and this is going to be the Voronoi diagram that is creating the 3 cells. We have cell A, we have cell C, and we have our cell B. Hope you enjoyed the process because we're not going to be doing this again very often.